I'm Indra, and I'd like to welcome you to the Messy Middle Matters, where my friends and I explore all the twists, turns, and challenges that arise in the messy middle of work. Hey, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the more challenging situations that you find yourself in at work, which is where the demands of the business don't always line up with human behaviors. What I'm thinking about when I say that is like the moment when a leader asks a team to do something and the team is like, "You want us to do what?" Like, not the thing that's too hard. It's like, "Are you going to be kidding me? Like, that's crazy." So, it's not in these scenarios, it's not that the team doesn't care about the business. It's not that they don't care about the product. It's just that the system that is being created or the system that they live in is not considering their human behavior. So we'll dig into real examples. But before we do that, I want to introduce Amanda. Welcome back. Welcome back. You're with me
Hello.
today, and I'm sure you have plenty to talk about on this one.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced this. It's that moment where the business or, someone on the leadership team is asking, say, the whole company to follow this brand new multi step process. And everyone's like, wait, one, what? And two, do I have to?
Why? What?
Yeah.
What? I think that the easiest one for us to start with is it's a classic example that people both on the agency side or in-house or, you know, a lot of folks can relate to, not everyone, but a lot of folks can relate to, is the request for team members to enter their time, not like hours clocked at work, but hours clocked against specific projects at work.
Yeah, I've actually dealt with this at a few jobs where, the someone on the leadership team wants the teams to start logging their time against certain projects.
Mhm.
And the reaction every time has been, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Like, what? You don't trust us? Like, this feels like surveillance, right?
It really does. Like, even when you're on like the agency side and you know full well that you need to enter in your hours worked so that all the billing, all the revenue recognition, all the stuff that needs to happen, figuring out all the accounting things they need to worry about, whatever, that, in your role, you're like, that's fine. You understand that that pays the bills, but it still feels so like, but why? Like, do I
Yeah. I
have
mean,
to? Like, this feels so tedious. I don't remember what I did today, let alone yesterday. Come on,
I
man.
mean, right. Like, and that's the feeling, right? Like, and honestly, that particular process, the time tracking process, the
Yeah.
time logging process is such a drag. Like,
Yeah.
no matter where you are and how much a company tries to streamline it, it's still a drag.
It's really hard. And it's one of those things that can be really complicated. So let's go into, so I did mention a little bit about the agency side of things, but not everyone can relate to that one as much. The one that I think that enough folks or more folks might be able to relate to, because I think the agency side translates into this one, is when software engineering teams are being asked to book their work, right? There's a bunch of different reasons that this happens, and usually it has everything to do with accounting and budgets. And yes, the company wants to understand. Part of it can be the company wants to understand how much time their staff members are working on project platform A, platform B, platform C, to understand where the labor is. That's actually good to know. So, like, are we over investing time into a product that does not make us money or help us stay stable as an organization? That's a good data point to know, right? But the one that's much more challenging to explain because it requires more rigor is capitalizable labor. So this is where everyone who knows anything about accounting needs to sort of stick their fingers in their ears and go la 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 la, because this is going to be accounting according to Indra, and specifically on capitalizable labor. So um this will be actually useful for everyone to understand. So, and like I do the for dummies because Indra, when in this topic, I consider myself. I rarely talk about myself in third person unless it's something like this. I promise y'all that. But in this scenario, I always say like it needs to make sense to me. It'll make sense to everyone else. So it's gonna be really simple. So capitalizable budgets. If we think about capitalizable budgets are usually hard assets. So it's like, let's pretend this mouse that I'm holding up is like a piece of furniture, right? The way that accounting can choose to track this piece of furniture, it is something that's used by the company that is in the main lounge of the company where guests have to sit while they're waiting for the person to come to them. So it's a hard asset. And what accountants can do is track or recognize the cost of that. Recognize may not be the right word, but the cost of that can be spread over the lifetime of that couch. So let's say this couch lasts me 10 months. I'm just choosing something simple. The couch is $1,000. I can do $100 a month. I don't need to hit all of those costs on my books and records the first month. I might need to pay the bill for that couch on that first month, but on the accounting records, it might spread across. You can do the same thing with labor, and that's capitalizable labor. When somebody is creating a product, I've got no idea. I'm holding up my sticker for the messy middle matters. Let's say this is a piece of software. Let's pretend I can do the same thing on this. So if the labor cost is usually when you're creating a product, the costs all get front loaded in the creation of the thing, and then you make the money over the course of time when you're thinking about that. I can spread those labor costs over the course of the lifetime of that product, feature, whatever it might be. So, okay, counting by Indra, not the most sophisticated, but hopefully easy enough to understand, even without visuals. And when an accounting team wants to capitalize labor, they need the software engineers to track their time against not just the platform, but the feature inside the platform. And everyone goes, I've done this at multiple companies. The software engineers like, why are you making me do this? This is so this is so that. And yes, it is annoying. But the upside of having that expense spread over the cost of time is that you might be able to hire more software engineers. And they're like, oh, they understand the why. But then they're still stuck in that thought process of what you're saying, Amanda, of like, I feel like you're surveilling me. Why do all of us have to do this in this sort of way? This is so hard. And then I've got solutions around that. But like, even if you've done that and if you explain to them the why, if you're making them all fill out 15-minute increment time tracking reports as if they were attorneys, no, no, not good.
Yeah. I think that example hit on two important things, right? Like one, it really helps to understand the why.
It really does. But
Yeah.
even
But
when they understand the why,
right. And two, a little bit of empathy goes a long way.
a long, long way, right? Because it's a few different triggers that go off. The team as a whole is always like, like there's just this very like they remind me of a middle schooler being asked to like do their chores, like
Right, clean your room.
um, and I don't blame them for that reaction. Just to be clear, I'm not. That's no shade, but that's the visual that comes to mind when they react to something like that. But then there's also their leaders, like the engineering managers, engineering directors, engineering head of engineering. Like they're like, I want my people focused on the work. If they get distracted with this time tracking stuff, they may not actually deliver. So how do we find that middle ground, right? And there are ways. There are ways to find that middle ground. And in a not so skilled organization, they would just say, just do it and do it in this really convoluted system that your team never goes into. And we need to have it tracked to this level.
Right. We need to have it tracked to this level with, a million little boxes that you need to check, and it times out on you,
You can't
and you
copy
have
one
to
row to
refresh it and you have
another.
to redo
Right.
it. Yeah.
A nightmare. And you come up with a solution, TLDR, so we can go off of this topic of accounting. But like the solution that I usually come up with is I, as a person who supports an engineering team in these scenarios. Or sometimes I've had it for design too. You can capitalize design labor too. But I go to accounting and I say, what are your requirements? Like, what do you
Mhm.
need? How do you need it? What specificity? What are the like? What are your accounting principles that we need to comply by? Great, fantastic. Can we meet your things in this X, Y, and Z way, which is usually, I love a good spreadsheet, but let's say you only have a spreadsheet, but like I say, can I have the manager of each team fill things out for their entire team, and they'll make sure it's done by this date so that you can do your accounting close for every single month, and we can do it in this sort of way, and we'll create a new spreadsheet so you have the auditability and blah 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 blah. And will this work for you, accounting team member? And they're like, or a finance team member, they're like, you know what? That actually meets our needs. It's not as this, that, and the other thing. I need these comments to make sure that there's this, that, and the other thing. I need to understand, is the product still in market or not? I'm like, okay, great. Let's add these other fields on this other tab. Can we work with that? They're like, yeah. I go to software engineering manager, say, hey, how does this sound? They're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than that first solution. I'm like, great. So we're going to do this every month. You know the reasons why. And this is so much better than the thing that we first talked about. They're like, yes. I'm like, great. And that's a way when you start dealing with human behavior that like we've all got a middle schooler inside of us that goes, oh, you're making me clean my room. Right. You get past that and you get to a solution that meets the needs of the business because the business wants their books and records to work. And the team is not sitting there pouting all day long, every day. And no one needs to nag them too much to complete the work.
I'm laughing because this has been the solution I've seen implemented multiple times because, yes, you have the,
Mhm.
do we have to? And
Do we
it's
have to?
usually, to find that nice balance between what the finance and accounting team need and the human needs of the team.
Of the
Um,
team.
it's usually the messy middle. It's the middle manager who has to understand the needs of everybody and then come up with the solution. And that exact solution that you described is usually it.
It's usually some version of that, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
rocket science. But it's human science. It's understanding both sides of the equation. It's a little bit of mediation tactics, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole lot of change management. That's what it is. Like that's when organizations say like, we have to do it this way. Like, I see why InfoSec wants to do that. I see why HR wants to do that. I see why finance wants to do that. But are you serious? Like, have you met the people? Like, but it is that change management and it is the communication piece. Like there are those three major things that don't always get done or thought through from both sides of the equation. They get thought through from the business side, but they don't always get thought through from the receiver side of things, right? The employee side of things.
Yeah. Something that I just thought of is, I'm going to put on like a product engineering hat, right?
Yeah.
It's about understanding the what and the why, and the how is negotiable in some
The
cases.
how, no, but the how, I think the how is always negotiable. Like I think
Yeah.
unless it's some sort of hardcore compliance process where you need to meet some federal standards to maintain your certification,
Yeah.
the how is usually has some wiggle room in it. No matter
Yeah.
what, the person who said, there's usually some sort of give that you can get. Maybe it's not a
Right.
ton, but something is better than nothing.
Right. And there's no harm in asking either.
And
Sometimes the answer is no, this is like truly a compliance thing. We need to do these 50 steps in this exact order in this way, or else we do not renew this certification.
suck it up, buttercup, right? Like, and that
Yeah.
can be, and then you tell the team, hey, guess what? This is one of those scenarios. We got to suck it up, buttercup. Like, don't love it. You can complain to me all you want about it. I will give you a pizza party every single time you do it, but please get it done. Maybe not a
Right.
pizza party, maybe a gold star for my stash, but like, please get it done. Please get it
Right.
done because otherwise the headaches, they're just not worth it. They're not worth it, and it's not worth putting your job at risk for this thing. It's I don't recommend this. This is not the one to go down for. No.
No. No.
But, like let's go to some other examples. Like I think there's other scenarios that are much less complex than accounting. We started with the big hairy one, right?
Mhm.
Um, there's other examples that happen on a day-to-day basis which fall into that change management category, and one that is, I think I've seen it prevalent even in good markets. So, but like I know that this job market is challenging. Like there's the change management. We'll use the example of when there's team reduction, when there's staff reduction, right? That is that feels like it's in the press every day. I know it's not. It feels that way. But how you handle that for your team and still don't get into trouble with HR, right? Because there's a
Mhm.
lot of, we've talked about this on other episodes. I don't remember which ones, but like what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say about elimination of roles or people's exiting of organizations needs to walk a very fine line because of employment law. And that's usually to protect the employees, believe it or not. Another episode to dig into that. But like how you handle that is really important. So like the person sending this out, who's designing the process might be like, this is how we comply to the law and this is how we tell people, and everyone just needs to move on.
Yeah.
They just lost, like three members from their team.
Yeah. And so on the other side of that, as the team members who remain,
Right.
when you get a very to the point communication from your leaders due to employment law, due to this, that, or the other thing, you're like, what the heck?
What happened?
What happened? And like, why does it seem like you don't care?
Why does it seem like you don't care? Because it feels so clinical,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's ways to handle that. I mean, and there can be those same change management things when you're growing too. So like we're just choosing this one because that's the one that's might be most is likely to be top of mind for folks too. But like 500 questions get triggered in their heads. My one of my favorite tactics for, after people figure out that there has been a reduction of 3 roles for whatever reason there might be, whether a written announcement has come out or not, is to host an AMA with leadership. Ask me anything. Like not that you really will entertain every question because there's lots of reasons you may not want to, right? But create a forum where people get to ask the questions. Create a structure that allows you to field those questions in a skillful way that allows people to be addressed but move forward and not get stuck in this, like what happened that day. Because if you don't address it, they will get stuck and your effectiveness as an organization is going to go down.
Right. And it's addressing that human need for to be heard, right? And I've seen this at multiple organizations where it's either like a town hall type company, like all company AMA, or just for a department or just for a team.
Yeah.
And depending on your organization and like your company culture and what is appropriate there, um, the size of that AMA can vary, but the important part is hosting some kind of forum of like, hey, I understand that you're all feeling any kind of way about this. I want to let you all know that we hear you. We're happy to um, collect and address any questions or concerns you may have, and give people the opportunity, as opposed to blanket statement, this thing happened, all right, let's continue working on all of our projects. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, I think that's the ideal state. I mean, not every organization will allow for that. Not every organization will afford that, right?
Yeah.
But so there's other tactics. So let's say you're in an organization that just like is like moving on. and you're standing amongst your colleagues. Like, let's say you're not a people manager. Let's say you're just a member, like a regular member of the team. And that's not a disparaging comment. It's just to understand like authority, right? Like levels, right? What you can do. I mean, I've done this. Like I was in an organization, we had layoffs. They didn't really make sense, but whatever. Um, and I went out and bought donuts for the team. And I said, and they're like, and I made sure I'm like, we're not celebrating that our friends are no longer here. We're eating our feelings. And so like the way that I would do,
These are empathy donuts.
I walked around with the donut, like, would you like to eat your feelings today? Would you like to eat your feelings today? And it made my colleagues feel seen. It recognized this moment that we're in, even though I could give no knowledge, I could give no, like, I had nothing to share other than finding a way to be like, I see you, you're not crazy, you're living through this. Would you like a donut? I'm not saying that eating your feelings is the healthiest thing on earth. That was the tactic that I went for in this particular scenario. But it sort of, it took the edge off of just a little, took the edge off the situation that everyone was going through because it felt like whiplash to everyone. They're like, what happened? What happened and why did it happen? No answers, but here's a donut. Like,
Right, no answers. Here's a donut. Here's some
I'm eating
coffee.
my
Let's go out
feelings.
to lunch. Let's go for a walk.
Totally. And there's ways of navigating these things that also, so when it does come down where, like, let's say you do wind up in that first example with, you need to log your time in 15-minute increments, like whatever, form a support group. And like all you do is complain about time cards, but you all fill out the time cards together in the support group as you're like complaining about it. Fine. That's
Yeah.
another way to do it, right? There's ways to make these disconnects between the ask of the organization and the reality of the people less severe.
Yeah, for sure. And I think from a team member perspective, from the teenager who doesn't want to clean his room
Yeah.
perspective, right? Instead of just being like, "Oh, this is stupid. This sucks." I think being more specific is also helpful, right? Like, oh, this step takes half an hour more than it really should. And here's why. It's because look, every time I do it, and if I take a
Mm.
little too long, it times out and I need to do it again.
I think
It's
yeah.
helpful feedback as opposed to just being seen as complaining.
100. I love that idea. I love that idea. Explaining why you have discontent.
Mhm.
Even if you don't have the solution, say, hey, this is going to take an hour every single day. And it's one less hour that I'm coding.
Yeah,
Just so that we're all clear. How do I log that time?
right. How do I log the time spent on logging the time?
It's a great question. It's a
Mhm.
great question. But that's a different, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. So it's never really easy, but I think it's just really, these solutions. I've given a few examples from my life. Amanda's given some from hers. The reality of it is that there is no one size fits all. These scenarios are going to pop up on the regular in really unexpected places. So, just like on so many other topics that we've talked about, test and learn, see what works as far as navigating it, helping to revise it, helping to improve it. Like, just run all these little micro experiments and see what works this time and track what didn't work for yourself. Because, some of these things, even if I gave you the playbook for how I've done things, it won't necessarily work in your organization because there's different humans on both sides of that equation, right? And that's what I call the secret sauce, like with the spidey instincts that we all develop over the course of our careers. It just takes getting knocked down a bunch of times to learn those. Like there's no book that you can learn that from. But just try things out. Try things out and just like celebrate those little wins. Like if I was in that scenario and if I could copy my time card from last week to this week and then change it,
Right.
huge. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm gonna put that in my pocket as a win.
Right. Or if like, changing this process is really, really painful, do it with your work besties, right? And just,
Crank on some
Complain about
music.
it there. Vent session while doing your time card. Cool.
100%. 100%. It's all good. It's all
The
good.
business
So
has needs. We need to meet those needs.
the business has needs. And so no matter where you are in the organization, whether you're on the business side or the employee side, I think that the first step is getting some empathy and compassion for the other side, exercising some curiosity, which shows up topic ever again and again, to understand the opposite side of that equation or the other side of the equation. And then, see and see where you can move this to, if at all. And if you can't move it, find a coping mechanism.
Right. Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No, I think you covered it. I think we covered it. I think, just understanding the what and the why and figuring out the how.
100%. And when you can't figure out the how, cope.
Right.
Cope. Find a
Donuts.
support group. Create a support group. All right, Amanda, thank you for joining me on this one. I suspect that our listeners are going to get something out of it if they made it through my accounting example, which hopefully it was tolerable. And I hope that y'all join us next time for another topic on the Messy Middle. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for taking time with us in the Messy Middle. Word of mouth remains the most powerful way for people to find us. If this episode sparked something for you, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app, download a few episodes, and share it with someone else who's navigating the in-between. Do you have ideas for future episodes or topics you'd like us to explore? You can find our feedback form at themessymiddlematters.com or in the show notes. Thank you for joining us on this journey. This work is better when we do it together. Until next time.